Converted man here. All right, Reality Insights, who I had a talk with. Link to that talk in the description. Put up this video that David Wood appears to misunderstand the atheist objection from evil. I'm not going to be as charitable. David Wood knows what the argument from evil is, but has to strawman it because he's an apologist, and that's what many times they do. Now, Reality Insights, I think, doesn't do that, or at least doesn't try to do it actively. But I think that David Wood and inspiring philosophy definitely do straw man constructs as well as other logical fallacies like all the time in regards to atheist arguments, because that's how to win. You can't win otherwise. Anyway, so this clip is thanks to Reality, and since I have no idea where to find this from the original video because that one's really long. And let's listen to them pontificate for a bit, and then I'll weigh in with how wrong they are.
You need all sorts of concepts that are involved, like moral rules, moral obligations, and so on, to have this kind of discussion. In other words, when an atheist, this is a problem, right? When an atheist tells me, if God existed, he would do this. If God existed, he would do this. What I'm hearing, and for all you atheists who are watching right now, when you say, if God existed, he would do this, what I'm hearing from you is there are moral obligations that would apply not just to human beings, but would even apply to God if God existed. You're saying that. You're saying that there are moral obligations that are so objective, they're objective in the sense that they would apply even to God. And two, you're saying that you have access to them.
Nothing better than good old presuppositionalism. When you, first of all, notice that when you say X, I hear Z. When you say this thing, I hear something completely different than what you're actually saying. Because I don't want to hear what you're actually saying. I want to hear what I want to hear. So, whatever you're saying, I'm just going to go ahead and construct a straw man argument version of what you said. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, yeah. How about paying attention? So, big if, God existed, then Z. So we would expect certain things, perhaps. Well, but what things are those? He's saying the things that you're expecting show that there's moral obligations. Well, maybe I'm just examining it from my morals. And say, look, if God used my morals, then it wouldn't do these terrible, awful things. It wouldn't allow for the terrible, awful things to happen. There'd be far less, if any, suffering. There wouldn't be natural disasters. There'd be longer lifespans or whatever. And by the way, I'd also reveal myself to all creation because I wouldn't go into hiding like God apparently does. So if God used my morals, it would be a very different God. But of course, that's not really the problem of evil. The problem of evil is that given that we're told God is a loving, caring being by you guys, that's what you guys say to us. And I understand loving, caring being to be a very set, specific criteria of things, then I would expect a loving, caring being to behave in certain ways that reflect a loving, caring being's uh, uh, nature of doing that. And then when you say, and on top of being a loving, caring being, also God can do just about anything that it wants. It can definitely help people. It could intervene in all sorts of ways, and it could remain hidden when doing so, even if it wanted. And it could do so in ways that don't interfere with free will or whatever. And that it could do all sorts of stuff, and it really cares about us and all this. And it's like, okay, well, why is all this crap existing then? And you can't just blame it all on humans, because like, what about the natural stuff, and what about animals that suffer and other creatures? And goodness knows how, if insects know that they're getting squished to death or whatever, or they feel pain in the way that we do or whatever, at what level does any life form know that it's suffering, if it's suffering. Who knows? But nonetheless, God would know that. And why, if God really cared about stuff, not just humans, but all the living stuff, well, then why would it want any of it to perish or suffer ever? Like, why would that be a thing? I don't expect that from a being that is, quote, loving, end quote. So this is a problem of your own making, David Wood. Would you please not attack Strawman? And it's not the actual problem. As far as saying that, well, this makes there to be an objective moral standard that's real. Well, my moral standard is real even if it's not objective. So I'm applying my morals to God, or I'm attempting to understand what you mean when you say there's a loving, caring being that can do just about anything. And yet, when I observe the world in the way that it really is, I see an awful lot of pain, suffering, and just stuff. Like, well, heck, what about non-living creatures? I mean, rocks break apart, and mountains crumble, and oceans overflow, and whatever. It's like, well, who cares about that? Well, if you care about what you made, wouldn't you care about it? I mean, you make this wonderful piece of art, and then you let water spread all over your painting. It changes your painting. Maybe it looks different now. Maybe it looks cooler, but maybe it got ruined. Why would you do that? That doesn't seem like you really love that painting that much if you're allowing all this insane stuff to happen to it all the time. You spend hours and hours on this painting, you leave it outside, in the elements that it gets rained on, and cat scratches it, and I don't know, some dog pees on it, whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, I really love that painting. Well, you're not treating it like you love it. So if you really love it, I wouldn't. The behavior that you're doing to that painting doesn't reflect love. So that's the real problem. So it's nothing to do with, oh well, they're admitting to objective morals because they know that objective morals exist. Oh no, yeah, he says that basically. Check it out.
That you somehow have, that you, a person sitting in front of your computer, have access to these moral laws that would apply even to God. That means,
Yeah. God doesn't have anything that applies to it. It doesn't have any morals that apply to it. It's amoral. So your God's an amoral being. It doesn't have any morals or ethics that it has to follow. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that I can't dare question God because I don't know what God is like? Oh, how dare you? You're saying these things apply to God. Well, they apply if the words that you're using to describe God are coherent. Then the morals that we know about, or that we think we know about, the way that we try to live our lives, broadly speaking, why wouldn't they apply to God? If God made us in its image, or if we made, well, more likely we made God in our image, but why wouldn't those morals apply to it? Why does it get a special pass? Oh, because it's God,
they are absolutely transcendent. You regard them as
No.
transcendent. And I look back and I think, if you really took your worldview seriously, would you think that the thoughts that are popping into your head about right and wrong are things that would apply beyond your situation? Because
Yeah. And I'm getting, this is your worldview. You don't know what the worldview is. You have no idea. But yeah, my thoughts can apply to other things that aren't me, because I'm not. I mean, I might be high in narcissistic tendencies, but I'm not that much of a narcissist. So uh, come on, man. It's just yeah, things in my brain don't always just apply to me. That's a no-brainer. I mean, what? So yeah, why wouldn't my morals or ethics apply to other people besides myself? And isn't that the whole point of having morals and ethics, is that they apply to all of us, or they should apply to all of us? Yeah, well.
Keep in mind what you are. You're some sort of evolved creature. You don't have to say that you're a machine for propagating DNA, like Richard Dawkins said. You can believe that you're, somehow more than that.
And that really annoys him. It's interesting. The way that reality really is, to boil it down to that, very, I don't know if Dawkins said that or not, but it's like, yeah, we are evolved creatures, whether you like it or not, whether you don't want to accept that. We are that, period. End of story. And objectively, as far as nature is concerned, our task is to propagate the species. That's also true, whether you like it or not. We're not just that. We're more than those things, though. So this is reductive thinking, and that. But it sounds good. Oh, you're just this thing, and like, well, you're just a soul piloting a mecha suit made out of meat. You're just a spirit with no tangible substance that is piloting a mech suit made of meat. That's all you are, is a spirit. I could do it too. It doesn't change anything. It's like, if that's all we are, the essence of us, who cares? What does that matter? What does that mean? It's like, all you are is this thing. Okay. And what's your argument?
Then at the end of the day, you're something in that ballpark. You're here because your ancestors did a better job finding food and finding a mate and using a spear against an enemy. That's how you got here.
Or you're here because they got incredibly lucky, or that they outsmarted people and ran away from situations, or any number of things. But again, so what? That's just why you're here. Yeah, you're here. Just examine the day-to-day life that we have for a moment, David Wood. Would you apply reasoning, perhaps, to day-to-day life? I don't know if you would do that. Yeah, I'm using his last name a lot. Okay. If you calculate, you can get polls and stats on like how many percentages of people die in the kitchen and bathroom and choking to death and whatever, all these other things. You could add all that up if you wanted to. I'm not going to do it, but you could. And you could say, wow, look at I've made it. Like, I'm here talking to you guys. That's amazing. I somehow made it past not slipping and falling in my bathroom. I made it past not choking. I made it past, the refrigerator falling on me. I made it past a lot of things that could have killed me, according to statistics alone. So that's pretty amazing, isn't it? Oh man, that just proves there's God. Oh yeah, that's what it does. Oh no, it proves there is no God, because I shouldn't be here by luck alone or whatever. It's just nonsense. It's just silliness to do, right? But, when you have no argument, that's what you have to do. You have to resort to silliness, I mean, I resort to silliness, but when I do it, I also have a good argument. Unlike Wood, he doesn't have an argument. I'm just, okay. It's okay when I do it, in other words.
That's what you are. So how are you wired? You're wired to do things that involve your survival and reproduction. That's it. That's what you're for. That's what your cognitive faculties are for. That's what your body's for.
Yeah.
Finding a mate, getting food, reproducing. And as such, any sort of...
Well, again, see, this is the whole reductive thinking that you're applying here, Wood. So that's all you are. No, that's not all we are. We are that, but we're also a whole bunch of other things. We're social creatures that enjoy each other's company, broadly speaking. I don't think I'd enjoy your company, but that's just because you're a stick in the mud who strawmans arguments. But, you can always change your ways and modify your behavior and not be that sort of person, and then maybe you'd be interesting to hang out with. Who knows? I don't know. But, yeah, we're a lot more than just those things. But so what? Even if that's all we are, what's your argument? Is this a weird appeal to consequence you're doing? I mean, what is it that you're trying to say by this? This is all you are. Yeah, and
Sort of, moral instincts you have are going to be geared towards that. If you took your worldview seriously, would you ever apply any of that to God and say,
yeah, sure, why not? Why wouldn't I? If there's a thing that's God, why wouldn't I apply the morals that I'm most familiar with to that thing? I don't know anything about God. That's you guys that make all sorts of assertions about God. I don't. I don't have any idea what the bleep God is, or what it is, or how it works, or functions, or if it is even a thing, or where it's located. That's all stuff that you guys say stuff about. And then I ask questions that, like, how do you know that? Where's the evidence? Can you prove any of that? Is any of that testable? And then you guys are like, look at all these broken arguments we have. And I'm like, well, that's not convincing. Well, I mean, that's just because you know that these morals are really objective and they're therefore God. I'm like, which God? What are you talking about? What? How do I know? What do I know again? What do you think I know again? Wait, what? How does any of that? Okay, none of this this is bad argumentation, but it's pre-assuming that your God is real. It's pre-assuming that it's transcendent. It's pre-assuming that these morals are this way, and you're pre-assuming all of that and say, well, if you took your worldview seriously, so clearly you don't take it seriously, because if you took it seriously, then you would do this thing that I want you to do. Ah, interesting. So this is what? A poisoning of the well. You're not really taking it seriously. Okay, and let's say I'm not taking it seriously. What does that prove? That doesn't invalidate my worldview, whatever it might be, nor does it validate your worldview, whatever it might be. So it doesn't matter. Even if you were right, it wouldn't matter. Whoops. But I guess you would have to think about such things first.
this is what God would have to do? No, you'd say it wouldn't make any sense to apply those kinds of things to God.
Why not? Why wouldn't it make sense to apply those things to God? Again, if this is all I know, and it appears that this is the life I know, this is the reality I'm familiar with, why wouldn't I apply my values onto God? Now, let's take out the word God and replace it with aliens. So aliens come, they finally have arrived at our planet. Probably here already, whatever, They're the politician that you hate, or they're the politician you like, depending on if you like or dislike aliens. Anyways, they're gonna eat the lizard people, so we can just get rid of that finally. All right. Anyways, and they also eat Bigfoot and Loch Ness monsters for breakfast. Okay, so we get rid of all those things. Okay. Anyways, the aliens are here. They've arrived. Well, I hope they have morals like us. Oh, hold on now. Hold on, this guy, David Wood, comes up. Hold on. How dare you apply our morals to them? How do we know what they're like? We don't know anything about them. Why should we apply our moral values to them? Obviously, they're greater than we are, and we don't know if they have the same instincts and evolution that we did. We don't know anything about it. So why would we apply our morals to them? And then they shoot David Wood with a beam that, like, it doesn't kill him. It just melts his face slightly. And so he's like all gooey and he's like, oh, see? This is good in their view. And then you're like, dude, that's bad in our view, though. Like that's bad. Oh, why are you applying our standards to them? And then they hit him with another ray, and it like mutates his leg, and his leg turns into a tentacle from an octopus, and then like he gets stickers of the suction cup stuck on his head, but on the side that wasn't melted, and he's trying to remove it. He's like, look, see, this is all good according to them. How do you know it's good according to them? You're what a moral. Well, as far as I know, I mean, maybe it's good according to them. We can't apply our more. And then they hit him with another ray bolt, and it just turns him into like gelatinous cube from D&D, you know, but he can still talk somehow. And he's like, see, guys, we can't apply our morals. And then finally they just obliterate him because they've had enough. And they're like, but no, they keep like his brain alive. And they're like, you're wrong, David Wood. We are using your moral values. We're just targeting you with all this bad stuff to make a point that our morals are the same as yours and you're a moron, and we're hitting you with all this stuff to like prove how stupid you are, but obviously it's not working. And I'm like, hey, aliens, look, that doesn't really follow. Like, why would you hit him with all those things? Why wouldn't you just say that he's being stupid? And then the aliens are like, shut up, stupid skeptic. And then they shoot me, but I dodge because I'm really good at dodging. And then
the fact that you do take your moral reasoning and say that God would do this or that shows you have a pretty darn high assessment of your moral reasoning.
Yeah, I guess I do. And what's your point? My morals are better than Yahweh's. Now, other gods, I don't know. Depends. You know, Allah, I think my morals are also better than Allah's. But, you know, other gods, I don't know. Maybe my morals aren't as good as theirs. But I definitely think that, yeah, my moral values and ethics are better than Allah and Yahweh. So, okay, and what's your point?
And I look at that and I go, that makes no sense on your worldview. To take
It makes no sense. Really? In what way? Also, how do you know what my worldview is? No.
To take your moral views this seriously. This only makes sense if there is this objective moral realm and you know you have access to it, in which case that doesn't make sense without God.
See, there it is. There's that precept. It only makes sense if the thing that I wanted to be true from the beginning is actually true. See? So that's how that works. Is I assume I'm right, and then I make a very bad straw man argument about what I think your argument is, because remember, Wood said, when you say this, I hear something completely different. I don't hear your actual argument. I hear what I want to hear. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but if, see, that word if, it means something, Wood. I know it might be hard to conceive, but that word if this is true. So see, the atheist, the skeptic, the whatever, they're saying, look, or maybe they're a believer in a different God. This argument wouldn't work on them. So what are you going to do then? Hey, your morals suck. Why? Well, my God says your morals suck, but my God says your morals suck. Well, now what? You know, how are we going to resolve that? You know, like our God says, kill everybody that wears hats on Sunday. Oh, that's interesting. Our God says kill everybody who doesn't wear hats on Sunday. I guess we have to go to war and kill each other over it, because how else are we going to decide whose God is really real? Whoever wins, obviously that's the God that's really real. Anyways, so wood, just knock on wood. Just knock them. I don't know. What kind of wood do you think he is? Oak wood, maple wood, pine, weeping willow, rubber wood? Yeah, I don't know. Sap wood, something sappy. I don't know. What's a presup wood? What's like the worst wood in the world? That's what you are. Also, your argument sucks. All right. Anyways, what were you saying? Oh yeah. So that only makes sense if there's a God. Well, but see, that's where the if comes in. If there's a God, then, okay, I'm granting tentatively for the sake of this thought experiment that you're right. There are objective moral values. And I'm like, okay. And when they apply to God as well as me? No, they wouldn't. Oh, okay. So God has its own morals and values that only apply to it and nobody else, making morals semi-objective. See, they're true for everyone except for God. So they're not really objective. They're just kind of objective. They're objective 99.99% of the time, but that 0.1% of the time, they're not objective because God has different morals than I do, right? Is that what you're saying? Well, but then you're admitting there's a God. That's what the word if was there for, you nitwit. That if says if this is true, then X would be true, or X would follow from that hypothetical word if. It's not saying, well, but you can't do that because then you're saying there's a God. No, I'm saying if there's a God, then I would expect X, Y, and Z. You're saying, aha, then there is a God. Why? Because you expect X, Y, and Z. Eh? Yeah, you can only expect those things if there is a God. That's what I just said. If. I said the word if. 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 Don't you know what if means?
And you can go down the line. We're having an argument about the existence of God. That only makes sense if you have a concept of God. Where'd you get your concept of God and so on? This.
You. I got it from watching you. I got it from watching you. That's where I got it from. I don't have any concept of God. You guys have the concept of God. And I'm saying, okay, fine. Let's take your concept of God. All right. If your God exists, then there are objective morals and duties, etc., that may or may not apply to your own God. If they don't apply to your own God, then they're not truly objective because they're only objective in the sense that God has somehow made them really objective. I don't know how God did that, but God did that somehow. We're going to ignore the old, Eurytherperia, I can't pronounce that guy's name, dilemma. You know what I'm talking about. PIA dilemma. Is it virtuous because it's God or oh God, I can't even spell it. I can't Google it because I don't know how to spell. But you know what I'm talking about. Maybe, hopefully, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody in the chat's gonna tell me how to spell it. Anyway, all right, whatever. Anyway, so we're just ignoring that. It's like, okay, God made them objective somehow, but are they really objective if they don't also apply to God? Because then they would be good. Like X is good for real. Like it's really, really good. Okay, great. So God does X, right? Well, no, God doesn't do X. Well, wait a minute. Why not? I mean, I thought God was good. Well, no, God doesn't have to do X. Okay, well, then it's not really good or it's not really that good because God doesn't have to do it. So God has different morals. So either they do apply to God and that makes them fully objective, or they don't apply to God, which makes them semi-objective, or really not. Really, ultimately, if it's not fully objective, I think that you could say they're not really objective because they would be subjective to what God wants or doesn't want to do any given moment. It's like, I'm going to kill people today. But you said killing was wrong. No. I said killing for you guys is wrong. It's totally fine for me to kill things. I have a different standard than you guys have. Okay, so then aren't you the maker of the standards? Aren't you the thing where all these standards come from? How could it be that you have different standards than we do? How can you say one day murder's totally fine for you, but it's not okay for us? Well, because I made you. Okay, but why does that change thing? How does that work? Shut up. And he zaps you with lightning bolt or whatever. Anyways, all right.
This gives you the ontological argument.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there.
Okay, all right, and then Reality Insights has his own commentary on it, and I like it. Now I do have a commentary on Reality Insights solution to the problem, and I think he does a pretty darn good job of explaining what the argument actually is, and he's like, hey, look, if God exists X, Y, and Z, right? So he's like, hey, look, I understand this argument. Why don't you? Why is it that Wood is being a bad apologist? Well, because he doesn't have any actual arguments. That's why. I don't know that there are good apologists, to be honest, but okay. So he has solutions to problems of evil, and I wanted to go over that a little bit. And somebody please tell me how to spell Eurythia. How do you say the word? How do you do the dilemma? What's the word of? Yeah, jeez. Okay.
Based on the known facts about reality and which offer a realistic solution to the problem of evil. In Christianity, this is because it proposes to solve the problem of evil. A very quick and dirty explanation would be something like this. Our moral feelings are reflective of a greater moral reality, that is, God. They can be evaluated by how closely they conform to God's standard of morality. God does permit evil on a limited temporary basis, and the death and resurrection of Jesus provides the permanent solution to evil. So Christianity proposes to solve the problem of evil. Atheism, on the other hand, basically just denies that the problem of evil exists. Humans are a social species. We're just more advanced than most. Moral feelings developed originally from our need to get along with each other in our small societal groups in order to promote survival. Moral feelings are just that. They're just feelings, and they're not actually reflective of any kind of reality.
Okay, it's according to this, it's let's see, let me play this again. Eurythrio? How do you say it? Euthyphro. Yeah, that's it. That's the guy's name I can't pronounce. Euthyphro. Whatever, fuck it. Anyways, his dilemma, that whole thing. Anyways, I guess. Now, this, of course, I would say, well, Reality Insights, this is your idea of the Christian approach, because other Christians aren't necessarily going to agree with your ideas here. And there is no atheist approach at all. There isn't. There isn't, because that's not what atheism is. It's not a worldview. Doesn't tell you how to do things. There is, you could think any sort of things about humans. You could think that we're all, secretly lizards, and that we're, or, as long as you don't believe in God, you can have any belief you want, So to be an atheist, you just don't believe in God. That's it. You can have all sorts of weird ideas about reality. So there is no atheist approach. Better would be maybe secular approach, but I'm nitpicking. But that's okay, because that's what I'm here to do. Okay. So the Christian approach, he says, that the feelings of morals we have are grounded in God. Okay, that means that God is the source of morality, as I said, and that would mean that those morals ought to apply to God, because if they don't, then there's no sense that can be made in saying that they're grounded in God if God has different morals than humans do. Then they can be evaluated by how closely they conform to God's standard, which again means that its ethics, its morals have to be the way to behave. If they aren't, then then that isn't good. So if killing most of the world except for a family because it was wicked, that must be the greatest good that there can be. Period. End of story. That's just good. It's good to do that. If you could figure out and deduce and prove beyond shadow of a doubt that everyone on earth except for these few people were good, then you would be morally obliged to wipe out all other humans except for those group of people, because that's what God did. If God did it, then it has to be good. And then God permits evil temporarily. Why? Why would God do that? Like, why? Why would you permit it at all? If you don't like it, why would you permit it? That be, so so God's morals are, I permit evil. So human morals must be that we sometimes permit evil. But it's temporary. But what evil do we permit and when? Well, it's hard to say because God's not telling us actively, so we just have to guess. Like, I'm gonna put this hot poker in your face for a while. Well, how long are you planning to do that? I don't know, temporarily. Well, why? Well, I'm doing that because that's the punishment that we've decided upon for you crossing the street against the light. It seems a bit excessive, but trust me, it's for the greater good. And then the death and resurrection of Jesus provides a permanent solution to it. Well, no, not really, because there's still evil. So, what did Jesus die for? There is still evil. There's still bad stuff going on. We died for your sins. Okay, well, what are the sins? The sins are the things that aren't things that God wants you to do, but He allows you to do them even though Jesus died for them. So, wouldn't they be wiped out when Jesus died? Like, wouldn't that mean you couldn't sin after Jesus died because sin is gone? No, that's not what it means. Okay, what about, it's about 33% of the world that believes in Jesus. So the rest of the world is obviously screwed. So his death and resurrection didn't help them because there's no celestial justice in the Christian system. To that point, he had a lengthy response in his comments about my complaint, and he said he's going to be another video that he'd have to do to clarify that or whatever, and I'm interested in seeing that video and seeing how he does it. But I will give Reality Insights props for thinking through these issues more than the typical apologist has, and that's why I am subscribed to him. Also, in case he makes something that I want to respond to, then I can do that because, I'm subscribed, whatever. All right, so I don't know if there is or isn't a God. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't see any evidence of that, but what am I basing God on? Well, I'm basing God on what people tell me about God. And different people tell me different things about God. I've heard all sorts of things about God while I've been on this channel. I've heard people talk in videos and writing comments, and I've interviewed some people that have some interesting ideas about God and how it works. Some people say that God pre-selects you for salvation. Others say you have to earn it. Others say things like God is zero, whatever the bleep that means. Some people claim to be like in direct communication with God, but they don't really want to say that, so they kind of hedge their bets. Some people have special ways of reading the Bible. It's all over the place. I've heard a lot. I haven't heard it all, but I've heard a lot of different ideas about God, and the supernatural. I'd like to get more into paranormal stuff. That's more that seems like fun stuff to debunk. But at any rate, whatever it is or isn't is not something that I am aware of, because apparently it's not detectable by ordinary mundane sensory inputs. It seems to me that the skeptic repels the supernatural, that ghosts and spirits and goblins and ghouls and whatever just aren't around when the skeptic is around. They just vanish. People that claim paranormal abilities would say when James Randi was alive, they didn't want him around because he set off negative vibes, and so he ruined the atmosphere, and then they couldn't perform their magic because his skepticism was so strong that it destroyed their magic. Of course, they're not saying that, but they don't want him, so he would stay far away, be like, fine, send my team there, whatever, I'll stay way over here. I'm nowhere even near this thing. And every time they would fail the test because it's not a thing. If you were here for the talk I had with a mule, that's not his name. Mule, that's not his name. The guy I talked to, whatever, a while ago. I asked him a number of questions about Emmanuel. There we go, Emmanuel. I asked him a number of questions about like testability of like the tongues. Like if this was a real phenomenon, well, it is a real phenomenon, but if it was a real language, we could solve the language using science. We could you wouldn't need a spiritual gift to discern it, but we could test that you had the spiritual gift to discern it if that was a real thing as well. There would be tests that we could perform on all these things, and he basically said it's spiritual. You can't. And he didn't say you can't test it, but he's like it's spiritual. He couldn't quite get himself to, and I was trying to get him to say it and admit that it's not testable. And I said, well, it appears to be it's untestable then, right? Because it's spiritual, it can't be tested. And he's like, he didn't say yes or no to that. He just went back to reading the Bible at me. But there you go. It's not testable. So morals, ethics are testable. You go, okay, if I do this behavior, what does that look like? What does that affect? Does it affect just me? Does it affect other people? What if everyone behaved in the way that I'm imagining? So, whatever that is, it could be as simple as, I just want to cross the street whenever. Well, if everyone's doing that, the cars are going to have some problems because all these people are crossing in front of them. The cars have certain things that they want to get to, So it would be a very, would cars have to adapt to that? Yeah, well, okay. Well, maybe you view things would be better if that's the way things were. Yeah, okay, the cars have to adapt to us. I mean, pedestrians do have the right of way after all, so why can't we just walk willy-nilly wherever we want, whenever we want? And some people do just that. There's an interesting study on this called the path of least resistance. And they mapped people, like, there was this freeway where people kept crossing the damn freeway all the time. And they crossed in the same space. So finally they put, like if they put a tunnel or a pathway over it, then people would cross on that. And what this one university or college or whatever did back when they were coherent and weren't lost to insanity like they are now is they had this whole little park area in the middle of the campus, and they did not pave it. They let people walk on it, and then they, for a few months until it killed off the grass, and then they paved over wherever those paths went, no matter how the paths went. And then the people would walk on those paths however they curved and would not walk on the grass because it followed the path of least resistance according to the average mean of human behavior. So morals are like, or maybe a little bit more complicated than that, maybe a little bit more simple, but they can be studied, and the effects of them can be studied. And so you can study societies that had certain morals in the past and say, how well did that society do? Oh, they're dead now. Well, something must have gone wrong. Hey, the Aztecs, I wonder what kind of morals they had. I don't know, but I do know they killed people for sacrifices. They lobbed people's heads off. Where are the Aztecs now? Gone. Why did they die? I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with that. Maybe not, but I'm just saying it's not a bad idea to think, well, maybe them cutting off heads didn't work out for that society, and maybe that's why that society isn't ran. In fact, there are very few, if any, societies that cut people's heads off anymore. Maybe that just doesn't work as a way to form a society. That's nice. So you can look at that. You go, oh, look at, you can do it with political systems. Oh, look, socialism. That's been tried a few times. It hasn't worked. And then, of course, the person's like, well, that's because we haven't done it the real right way. It's like, yeah, sure, buddy. You would do it the right way because you're so smart. Okay, let's give you a simulator on a computer to play with that and see how well that goes for you. Or you can get together with a bunch of friends in a house and see how well that goes for you. And quickly you find it doesn't work. So, hey, maybe it doesn't work. And there you go. You can test it. You can examine it. And none of that requires it to be objective in the sense that David Wood wants it to be objective, but what is it objective towards? Well, probably not harming humans at the very least. Now, maybe other creatures are a concern to you as well. Maybe other life is a concern to you as well. But at the very least, morals are a thing that we put onto ourselves to help us navigate and interact with other humans so that we do things that we hope that other human would appreciate, and we don't do things that we think that human would find offensive, although we might, because we don't know everything. Okay, so there you go. What does chat say? Let's see. Does chat have any questions, comments, or whatever before I end this that I need to comment on? Let's see. Yeah, well, not really. Okay, cool. Thanks for watching and checking this out with me. And if you want to see David Wood and friend be completely wrong about everything, yeah, I got the link to that in the description. Not sure why you would want to do that, but maybe you do. I've got lots of content, lots of playlists to check out. If you haven't looked at any of that, you can do that. I have 2 books you could buy if you haven't done that, and you could read the books when you get them. So that's a thing. I'm not sure what else you could do. But whatever it is you do, try to do the thing that will produce love in this world and not destruction. Although you might screw it up, but at least we're trying. We're trying to do something good, or what we think is good. And then, if that fails, then don't do that anymore, maybe, I guess. So there you go. I fixed everything, resolved everything. That's it. Good night. Goodbye. Good day. I don't know what it is. Be skeptical. There. That's the way to end a broadcast. Yes, hit the button.